Hey, here y'all, folks. Here's your guy back again, Adolphus AD Moore, and here we are on the AdMax Corner. Oh, by the way, for anybody that still is concerned, I know there's some bettors out there. They will bet on anything. The AFC beat the NFC 41-35. I mean, for those of you that were interested, but with tell you what, this is sort of the lull in between the for Super Bowl 56. We know that the Bengals will be the host team for the Los Angeles Rams this time next Sunday. They'll be hard at it, but the NFL it's been at a crossroad. It's at a crossroads again, and I am honored to have this gentleman come on the show. And let's face it, he's meant a lot to me. He's meant a lot to my compatriot Max Edison. And so, without further ado, I mean, his resume. I could probably spend the rest of the next show just on his resume by itself because of all the things that he has been instrumental in. But without further ado, I'm getting ready to bring him on and welcome. Let me see. Let me get you unmuted. There he is, Mr. John Wooten, the man himself. Let's face it. Yeah, well, he just recently retired. I don't even know if that's the right term, because with the Brian Flores situation has just blown up with the NFL. I sort of asked him offline. I said, "I bet your phone been blowing up." I think he had to go get a couple of other phones, plus add a few lines in. John, welcome to the corner. Thank you for taking the time and coming in and being able to share some knowledge that we probably all of us really need, because you were at the apex at the start of the being the chairman of the Fritz Pollard Alliance, and we're going to talk about that, the origin of that. But welcome to the corner.
Well, listen, AD, it's a pleasure, man. You finally didn't have nobody else in all these years, man. You had the Max Corner and everything, and you never brought me on. That's a shame.
Well, not well. You know what? I take my beating. But you know what? I know you do it with all the love that you have for both of us, and
yes,
I realized that the Brian Flores situation has already thrown another shadow over the NFL. You have been the chairman of the Fritz Pollard Alliance. You were there, and you were there when the Rooney Rule came about. I want to go back from the beginning, and I want you, because you were there at the beginning, and understand, because a lot of folks said, "Oh, this lawsuit," but there was another pending lawsuit that sort of necessitated bringing the Rooney Rule about. I'm gonna give you the floor and let you just go ahead and let's talk about it from the beginning. Let's bring it up to current day.
Well, it didn't become a lawsuit, and the reason why it didn't become a lawsuit was that Johnny Cochran, who everybody knows, but Cyrus Mary and Johnny Cochran weren't law partners, but they had a great working relationship, because Johnny was a go-getter, fight you in the street type of guy, and Cyrus is a labor lawyer. So that works really hand in hand, because when you start talking about civil rights primarily, you find that the biggest problem is in the labor factor, jobs and that type of opportunity. So what they did was they had a study done, and the study showed by Janice Madden out of the University of Pennsylvania. Her study showed that minority coaches were not getting, just like you see now, proper opportunities.
All right.
And she wrote this article about superior work, but inferior opportunities. That was the thesis, name of her thesis on this. And of course, Johnny being Johnny, immediately said to the NFL, if you don't want to negotiate something, then we must litigate it, must take it to court. And the Paul Tagliabue was the commissioner then. He immediately set up a committee, and that committee was called Diversion and Inclusive Committee of Owners. That's the way the NFL runs its business, through committees. So, but the real thing that happened here is he named Dan Rooney the chairman. And I, of course, saw what they had done, and I didn't know Cyrus, but I called his office there in Washington. And I know
you just called it out of the blue, but you were looking at it. You two had never met before. Y'all never had no dealings before up until that point.
Didn't even know each other existed up until that point.
Okay.
So I called his office and I said, "Who is Cyrus Mayor's administrative person?" And you know the young lady Jackie Lee. Remember Jackie? Right. She's deceased now, and she was outstanding. And they said, Jackie Lee. And I said, well, let me speak to Jackie Lee. And I said to Jackie Lee, tell Cyrus, I saw this at the NAACP office there in Baltimore, that they were saying they had something that the league had to look at, need to look at. I said, tell them if they're serious, meet me at the Combine in Indianapolis.
Okay.
And that's what led to all of this. We went in by word of mouth, because cell phones weren't in existence. This is 22 years ago. Cell phones weren't even in existence, anything back then. Word of mouth at the Hyatt Regency there in Indianapolis, Hyatt Regency. We called for a meeting. I figured it'd be about 40 guys there. Man, when we walked in that room, these guys are sitting on the floor, out in the hall. It is just overpacked. So we sit and talk to them, coaches, scouts, everybody there, all kind of guys there. So we said to them, we need to organize and come up with a name, and we got to have your support, that you agree to be members of this organization, and we need to go to New York as your representative. Okay. And that's where the vote went in, that we're going to support it. We'll stand with it. And we got organized, named it Fritz Pollard, because 99% of the people in the world had never known that there was a black head coach ahead of Art Shell, right?
Correct.
So now they realize that in 1921, there's a black head coach in the NFL by the name of Fritz Pollard over there at Akron Pros, and they went 11-0 and 1 tie in 1921. So that just gives a background on why we went after the name Fritz Pollard. And just to take it to the next step with him, because of what he had done as a player in the league, in the NFL, and becoming a coach, we wanted him in the Hall of Fame. So in 2005, Fritz Pollard was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Of course, he was deceased, but we still got him in there. Now, going back to, so we get to New York, Tagliabue is not there. He's at a league meeting down in Florida. And Johnny Cochran says, who's in charge? Who's heading up this meeting that's in charge, that is in direct touch with the commissioner? And
okay.
the young man now is Roger Goodell, the commissioner now, says I'm that guy. He said,
Did
well, go
John?
ahead.
Let me ask. All right, stop. Did y'all had already y'all had already had an appointment there? Did Roger know you? I mean, did Paul know y'all were coming in, or he already had this schedule, and this sort of slid to then I guess. Well, I know we know the folks don't know. Roger started off at the NFL office as an intern,
Yes.
and was that the case? I'm just trying to flesh some things out for folks for their understanding. Getting up, bringing up to today.
No. When we got the okay to organize and support of the coaches and scouts and other personnel people in the NFL at this meeting, when we got that approval, now one of the things everybody started mumbling about that night in Indianapolis was, quote, heads are going to roll. And Terry Robisky
Right.
and Jimmy Ray and stood up and said, hey, if heads are going to roll, let my head be the first to roll. And that just changed the whole room right there and then. Okay?
Could you
Go
all right,
ahead.
give me all right, Rabisky, give us a little background on who Rabisky, where was he at that point in time? Who was he with? I know some of
Robisky, I want to say that he may have been with the Raiders at that time.
okay, all right,
But Robisky's been everywhere, been assistant head coach and all this.
right,
But he's not that far in his career at this time.
okay,
But he stood up and said, if heads are going to roll, let my head be the first. I'm saying go for this. And with Jimmy Ray coming right behind him, and then Tony Dungy, all these guys in the room, everybody that you can think of that was in the NFL, Joe Green, everybody is in that room that night because they wanted to hear what Johnny Cochran, everybody knew Johnny Cochran. They didn't know Cy Smith, but they wanted to hear. So we called New York and get a meeting. And unfortunate, the time, and I don't know if Tag Blue just did it that way so that Roger could handle this meeting, but that's the way it went on. But the thing is, in that meeting, Johnny Cochran told them, if one person across this league is threatened about a job opportunity by joining Fritz Pollard Alliance, you let the commissioner know that he's never seen a lawsuit that I put on him. I'll end up owning this league with the lawsuit that I'm going to put on them if one single person is threatened about this. And Roger said, I got it. Now, I know that Roger told the commissioner this because Ozzie Newsome was at the meeting down there in in Florida.
Florida, okay,
And Ozzie called and said, what's going on up there, man? And I told him what had happened at the meeting. And he said, well, when the commissioner walked in this meeting, this owners meeting down here, the first thing he said was, let me tell you something. Nobody is to disencourage or talk negative about the new organization called Fritz Pollard Alliance. As a matter of fact, encourage your minorities on your staff, in your front office, in the scouting, to join Fritz Pollard Alliance. It's a membership. Tell them to join because this is something that can bring a lot of changes here within the NFL.
okay,
So that's how all that went down. And of course, as I mentioned to you, Dan Rooney was appointed head chairman of the Fritz Pollard Alliance. And of course, that was a godsend because you got a man that is totally committed. And, the proof is in the pudding.
Right. The so Tagliabue appointed. Was he sort of like the league, the owner's representative?
No,
When they,
Tech was the commissioner.
yeah, but I'm talking about as far like you mentioned earlier that the league always they do things in a committee style function. When Dan Rooney was appointed, he was sort of was the liaison as the owner's representative coming to you to meet with y'all. Is that the way? Was that the initial way it was supposed to go down?
That's exactly the way it went down.
Okay.
I had the same kind of relationship as chairman of the Fritz Pollard Alliance that I have with you. We had each other's numbers. We called each other at home. Whatever there was something going on that we didn't quite feel that this was good for what we were trying to do, I just pick up the phone and say, Mr. Rooney, I always call him Mr. Rooney, our ambassador, after he became the ambassador.
Right.
And he would say, hey, Johnny, he wanted me to call him Dan, and I would tell him, no, I'm comfortable with Mr. Rooney. And this is the kind of relationship that we felt when you look at what happened. At one time, we had 8 minority head coaches. We had 8 minority general managers. And all of a sudden, they're losing out, or they're not being replaced, or so forth. And now, of course, it's just almost embarrassing, as to what has happened out here.
John, you've been very gentle. I mean, it's past embarrassing. I mean, it's pathetic, but it's almost like I'm just trying to. I guess folks of our ilk are sitting there wondering. But let me, before I get that far, let's go back and take me through the mechanics of the Rooney Rule as it was initially put together and presented to the league. Because I know because knowing you, but I think a lot of folks, because everybody say, well, the Rooney Rule is this, is that, but the thing about it, the teeth in it, or what like I say. And I've heard you say it on more than one occasion. No, we can't make nobody hire anybody. But the thing about it, what you were trying to do was get guys to get in front of folks to be exposed to them. So we've just sort of pick it up from there, and what your thought processes were with at that point in time, and try to bring it up to date.
Well, the real purpose of what we were doing is, number one, we recognize from being in the league. I've been in the National Football League since 1959. So consequently, we have seen this league grow from the point of, number one, when given the opportunities to be head coaches or general managers, or just coaches, period, of scouts, directors, administrative assistant general managers, all those kind of things. And if you look at what's happening, even this hiring cycle, just look at it and check it out. You're going to see what 3 black general managers has been hired, okay?
All right.
You're going to see that 2 or 3, there's an assistant general manager at the Raiders. I'm not looking at the list now, so I'm talking off my head. There's a new assistant GM at the Raiders by the name of Anthony Champ Kelly, we call him. Okay, then you look at the young guy that's assistant GM up at the New York Giants, a kid named Brandon Brown. Okay, you look at the new general manager at the Chicago Bears, Ryan Poles. Look at the new general manager, black guy, at the Minnesota Vikings. All of this has just happened since this hiring cycle. Our coordinators, the rule is working. Where it's breaking down at is at the head coach. And it's a simple thing, and we talk about it all the time. The face of the franchise of an NFL team is the head coach and the quarterback. Look at how the quarterback has changed over the years. That wasn't that long ago that we didn't have, 2 or 3 black quarterbacks. Now everybody has a black, even as a backup or whatever.
Yeah, because they used to be a job. The backup quarterback used to be reserved for some journeyman, but now that we're allowed. It's kind of ironic that you brought that up because I remember seeing a clip that somebody had shown of John Thompson saying that he's tired that he has to be perfect in order to get a job. He said, "Let me come in there and let me fail or succeed on my own merits without me having to be perfect." And so that reminded me because you sort of used to be a running joke, that you could find a lot of folks that would be backup quarterbacks, but all of a sudden now we used to always say, "Yeah, we're not gonna be a black guy being a backup quarterback," because they kept that was almost sort of like reserved, sort of like the free safety spot on the defensive side. That was sort of like reserved for the white players, So but
the thinking position.
Yeah, I mean that was the thinking position. The center was the thinking position, and letting folks know, and it's something that I'm gonna that I know intimately about you, because in your position you were sort of the message guard, and that was and that was sort of unique at that time because I asked you several years back at the time when you came in the league, there was only 3 black guys that played offensive guard because they didn't think that y'all had enough wherewithal. They didn't think y'all had the intelligence to play the position.
Right.
I'm gonna tell a story how you became, as you call it, the message guard, but it was much more to it than that.
Well, the messenger guard had to do with coming to the Browns. I was drafted in the 5th round and so forth out of Colorado. And of course, Colorado primarily was a running, we played the single wing. So you knew we may have thrown the ball 2 to 3 times a game or less, you know what I mean?
Right.
Now I'm drafted into the Browns, and Paul Brown immediately tells me that I'm going to be the messenger guard if I make the team here, right?
Okay.
But the thing that I got to make sure I can do, and that is pass protect. As he said very openly, if you can't pass protect, you won't be up at this leg long because we're going to throw the ball and we don't want that quarterback hit. In particular, and you have to understand now, the messenger guards under Paul Brown, we sit in the quarterback meetings because we were calling the plays. We didn't just run in and say number 2 or number 3. We had to call the formation, the play itself, what the checkoff was, and the snap count. We actually called the play when we came in the huddle. So all the quarterback had to do was repeat what we said. But the thing about it is that they looked at that as a real, quote, thinking man's position. And I used to tease Chuck Noll all the time that when I came there, I put him on defense. And he went on and became a great coach, and everything. But I helped his defensive career by putting him over there. But the thing we want to stress is we have seen the changes over the years. And we know how they think. Look at Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy has been in 4 straight conference championships, gone to 2 Super Bowls, and should have be going to the 4th one, but he didn't do what he's supposed to do, and that is throw the ball away when on that down there at the 5-second mark.
Right.
But be that as it may, the point is he's been outstanding in what they're doing and so forth. Go ahead.
All right, the thing about it, right? We just McDonald, the OC from San Francisco. He just got it's down to two positions now.
Yes.
The Texans, the Houston Texans, and the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
Now, and Brian Flores apparently, at least from the information we've gotten, is still under consideration. But I think
so, and rightfully so, he should be.
Yeah, well, regardless of the suit, but the thing I think what everybody's sort of this flabbergasted at is the fact that the other candidate is sitting there with resume that really that I'm pretty sure that you couldn't. I mean, there's nobody in this league, if they look like us, if they tried to have a resume like that, they wouldn't be sitting there as the number one or number two candidate for that position. I mean, the just recently fired David Culley from here resume was far superior than what Josh McCown was. So this is why folks, I mean, seriously, are just sitting there going like, what is going on? And even they have I mean, and I've heard folks want to question, well, the Fritz Pollard, I mean, the Rooney Rule is not doing this, is not doing that. But I'm sitting there going like, it's not the Rooney Rule. This is the NFL. This is the owners that's doing this. That's trampling all over. That's making. But the thing about it, as long as they continue to make money hand over fist, they printing money and they can throw it away faster and want to throw it at some organization. But instead of getting down and looking at the reality of what the league looks like now, and before we go off, I have a photograph. I got a placard that you signed that had, we stand on your shoulders with Fritz Pollard. I think you really know I'm gonna show that before we go off the air.
Well, the thing that you're looking at, what you're saying is exactly, and you got to put it on the owners because they're the ones that are making the decision. Every time you look around, they're changing the goalpost on us. Okay, first of all, they wanted you, quote, in the quarterback's room. It said that Eric Bieniemy wasn't calling the plays. So now all of a sudden, if you watch any game, they can't say that because you see him calling the plays unless Andy Reid is a ventriloquist, right?
Right. I mean that was clear this season because for some reason the depending on who's whether it's on Fox or whoever, I'm giving them an unashamed plug of what CBS or NBC Sunday night with the Chiefs were playing. That camera was sitting there between what Mahomes was sitting there holding his hands over his helmet. Then you watch it. I'm sitting there watching Eric Bieniemy pushing his button and talking to him in his helmet, and I'm sitting there. But yet to this day, folks would tell you he's not calling the plays. So I guess I guess it's sort of like what Bud Adams told Jack Pardee one time when he was with the Houston. No, put the headset on and look like you're doing something, which, Pardee was just not the type of coach that wanted to walk around with the headset. All head coaches didn't necessarily have a headset on, but that was just a sidebar thrown into this, John.
Listen, you got to put it on the owners because they voted 32-0 that they would see. Before they didn't even have to interview. They just keep on they interview whoever they want and going about the business. The Rooney Rule says not just for head coaches, but all the way down the line, starting with presidents, all the way executive vice president, player personnel people. You cannot just bring in anybody into your organization without interviewing minorities. That's what the Rooney Rule does. And if you watch any football game anywhere, you see black women, everybody else out there on it. But now they still dodging. They're still figuring out a way to that head coach, they still want him to look like they used to want the quarterback to look. And that's what you're dealing with. That's why this lawsuit, complaint that Brian Flores, why? Because number one, Brian Flores gets a note that says that they had already given the job to Brian.
Brian Debo, yeah.
He gets however the text comes in there. And yet you still go ahead and take him through the interview, and you interview Leslie behind it. So you've already violated the rule.
But what the thing about it though, what's the consequences? These owners, there's no
consequences. Let me tell you what the consequences are going to be.
All right.
I'm going to tell it to you right now. What that text says is true. You got the text, and so it's not a matter that whether this happened or didn't happen. If that text is true, then you got to be talking about a 2 and a 4. Why a 2 and a 4? Because number one, not only did you sit there and play the game on the crowd and interview Brian Flores, but you also interviewed Leslie Frazier after that. So that's why it's 2 and a 4. Now, in my opinion, and the vote that I will put in is this. If Jack Sheehan, the new GM, acted on his own and didn't tell Mara and Steve Tisch about this, that he had committed to Brian Debo, if he didn't tell them, and because they were in the interview room when all this was going on, they were interviewing when Brian Flores and Leslie Frazier went in for the interview. The 4 people in the room were John Mara, Chris Mara, Steve Tisch, and Joe Sheen.
Okay.
So if Joe Sheen has told Brian Debo that you're my guy and didn't tell them, then he should be suspended at least 1 year with no pay. This is what I'm going to be pushing for. This is not the Rooney Rule. This is sham interviews. And that's why they should have to pay the penalty.
Well, all right. Even here in Houston, Hines Ward was I know didn't and correct me, John, wasn't there additional stipulation that not only one, but there should be more than one minority candidate should not be interviewed, correct?
It got to be 2 externalists. In other words, you can't go down the hall. See, they pull that trick. There's a reason why they're saying that they have to be externalists. In other words, they can't be working on your team.
Right.
Even if you're interviewing a minority, and the reason why they circumvented 2 or 3 years ago by going down the hall and interviewing somebody that they had knew, all of this is on the owners. And the reason why it's on the owners is that they're the one that voted 32-0 to do this. Nobody had a gun on them. They voted this way. Now, the difference is Dan Rooney is not there.
Well, so
all of this is happening after Dan Rooney.
My question now: who succeeded Dan? Who succeeded the late Ambassador Rooney? And what kind of? I'm asking this question just for FYI. So, who succeeded the late Ambassador Rooney in that position?
His son Art.
Okay, so I mean, the one thing, Dan Rooney, Art Rooney Jr. I mean, we've seen that Pittsburgh, because the last 30 plus years they only had three coaches. One of them now is still in his 15th year and hadn't He hadn't had a losing season yet. If it works for them, why can't it? I mean, why the? I'm just trying to figure out, understand the mindset of the rest of these owners.
Let me, and that's an excellent question. Let me just deal with that, AD. Each and every year, when I was the chairman of Fritz Pollard Alliance, I met with Dan Rooney, and we went over what we call our ready list.
And I know what the ready list is. I've seen it, and
Okay,
it's a very extensive list.
exactly. And everybody on there is capable of being a head coach. Okay, not we wish he could be a head coach. He has the ability to be a head coach. The year that Dan Rooney signs Mike Tomlin, he had already interviewed Ron Rivera and Jim Caldwell. He had already satisfied the Rooney Rule. When we met and went over the list, I told him, Mr. Rooney, this is the guy right here I want you to do. If you don't want to do it, it's up to you. But here is the guy that I want you to check out just for me.
Mike Tomlin. You talking about Mike Tomlin?
I told you, I said, young guy up at the Minnesota Vikings.
Minnesota, yeah.
And he said, I'll fly up there tomorrow. I will fly up there tomorrow. And that's what he did. And the next night, it was a little later than it is right now when he called me back. And he said, Johnny, I said, what's up, sir? He said, can we talk? I said, yes. He said, that young man is fantastic. I got to bring him back down here to Pittsburgh and look at it. I said, that's all I ask you to do. And the rest is history. This is the way this thing should work. If you are looking to be open as an owner and trying to get the best guy for your ball club, you got to interview the field. You can't have no crap or whatever you want to call it, because your brother and you worked and coached for this guy that you should get a job opportunity. That's why you see all this turnover every year. You know what I mean?
Right.
Look at your ball club right there, the Houston Texans. 3 years ago, that was a good football team. 3 or 4 years ago.
Absolutely.
You had a good football team. And what did you do? You bring in Mr. Bill O'Brien. And he's, you can't, you just can't do what they did. And the next thing you know, what your ball club is leaking air. But the point I make to you is this. I'm not saying that everybody we bring in is going to be Mike Tomlin or Tony Dungy or, but we did bring Lovie Smith back in there. That's good.
Right.
Never should have been fired anyway. Never should have been fired out of Chicago. You win 10 games in this league and you get fired?
Jim Caldwell, who won I think 9 ball games.
Nine, yeah.
And he gets terminated.
Well, not only that, the bad thing that hurt Caldwell even more so was that playoff game up here in Dallas when the official made them pick up the flag in the closing minutes when Hitchens definitely had tackled back out of the backfield and they picked up the flag, But the thing that I'm saying to you is this. This is the main thing I want to get across. 2 things. Number one, it's not the Rooney Rule. It's not the rule. It's the people who are supposed to adhere to the rule that are not doing it. And secondly, Brian Flores deserves to be coaching in this league tomorrow morning. That's how it should be. Just because he filed a lawsuit, because you insulted him by pretending that you know the whole thing. That's what you got to deal with,
Right.
you know. And if you do it that way, the league prospers and moves on. But if you don't, you know, you're gonna just have. This doesn't surprise me that someone finally filed a lawsuit because they were insulted to the point that you totally broke the rule and the law. This is a rule that they agreed to this rule, AD. And now you're trying to circumvent it and do all this stuff. You know, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I know I told you I wasn't gonna hold you long, but I mean, to me, it was a lot of things that I wanted in my mind that I wanted to get out because you hear a lot of different things, and my attitude is, okay, let's go up Mount Sinai and go to the bush because you were the man had sat there and been there and had been there all the time. You know, I hear folks have sit there and criticize and bash the rule. And I argue, and I know, and my former colleague Max Adams would argue, it's not the rule. It's the people who refuse to adhere to the rule. It's just like
after they voted to have the rule.
Yeah.
You know,
So that was, I mean, basically, I guess they didn't want to look like that was an appeasement vote. What I guess they thought that y'all were going to go sit somewhere quietly and wasn't going to say anything after that. But no, and I know, and knowing you, and I've known and seen you how you work in the past. That just because you're not out front that ready to blow up the building, but behind the scenes, you down there trying to knock the foundation out from under some folks because you understand where you have to really go to get to the seat of power.
Well, the thing about it is this. The rule wasn't put in to just, see, I was upset when they hired Gruden because I knew that Mark Davis had violated the rule. Okay?
All right.
I wasn't even asking for draft choices because I didn't want to hurt Reggie McKenzie, right? You take away money from him, that doesn't hurt Reggie McKenzie. But if you take draft choices away from him, you hurt him. Okay? And I know he was as innocent of this as anybody could be.
It's kind of ironic. I got a chance to talk when Reggie got fired. I'm trying to remember which was it in. I want was it Atlanta or whatever? Yeah, it was Atlanta. That Reggie, because Reggie and I had a conversation during at the dinner that night, and so yeah. And I told Reggie, I said, you know what, and I just said that quite candidly to Reggie in a conversation. I said, I don't think Al Davis would have done you like that.
No,
But
no.
I just thought because looking at from afar, and Reggie said no, he wouldn't have. He said, but this was Gruden and power hungry and Gruden just was a. But when somebody gives you $100 million 10-year contract and basically tell you you got carte blanche, then you get what you get. Well, and now the league has to deal because that's another situation. We're talking about the Brian Flores, and that's primarily what I want to talk to you about as far as the Rooney Rule. But the NFL sitting there, I mean, they swear that this whole John Gruden thing with these truncheon emails out there that he was going back and forth with folks that was executives in other league offices.
That's exactly right. See, and I guess if Gruden stays on the case, all this got to come out. See, and as I said, the thing about it, had the league fined Mark Davis for making the deal with John Gruden when they had not interviewed any minorities for that job. And they fined them like we asked, just a monetary fine for, quote, trying to skirt the Rooney Rule. They might not have had the problems they got right now as it relates to Gruden.
Well, here's the other, and John, I know I appreciate the time. You got guys like a Reggie McKenzie out there. We knew those of us that knew the behind the scene, what kind of shape the Raiders was in when Reggie took over.
Got him out of cap jail and everything.
Yeah, well, and what he was able to do, and basically Gruden was sort of presented Gruden with a package to sort of pick up. But you sort of look at a guy like say a Jerry Reese who got 2 Super Bowls to his credit, and he can't even get a call to be a consultant. I mean, it's kind of ironic to me. The NFL gives good posture on the TV. They put these signs in racism in the end zone, but yet you know that's all fine and dandy. But you know you can only that pig can only go so far, and you can only put so many Chanel dresses on it, and it's still gonna be that pig. It's a swine. It's not any good.
But as I said, the Rooney Rule is directly reflected on the owners. That's why the Diversity and Inclusion Committee is made up only of the owners. That's who's on that committee. Why? Because those are the guys who, quote, have final say on the presidents, on the general managers, on the coaches, head coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you deal with them on this. See, you don't hold them responsible for some community program or whatever. But here's where you hold them responsible. And this is what the worst thing they can do right now is for Flores not to have a job. As good a coach as he is.
Well, I know you're a God fearing man, and I know you. I know you that will go to the Rosary every week. You probably go to church on Wednesdays too. But you know what? You know, but we're both God fearing folks. But you know what? We're probably dealing with some folks that even if they saw the burning bush and the Red Sea split, they still would probably go try to circumvent that. John, you know, I appreciate you. You know, you mean the world to me. You meant the world to me and Max, and you know, it's you know, we affect Tyler's not up there, but we affectionately call you the Godfather, and I think you know we tell a lot of folks the Godfather told us to give you a call. Oh yeah, Mr. Wooten called, huh?
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing about it is, you know, you guys are special to us. As you know, Max was our official MC at the Johnny Cochran salute. He just came in and took that over.
Yeah.
Every year he just wanted to know where was it, you know, where was it going to be held and what time, and he'd write his own script and everything else. So, but you guys have been great to us, and you know, I tell Judine all the time. There's just so many ways I miss him and everything. So, but hopefully we'll see you. We'll be there.
I'm planning on, man. Hopefully that as what I told you offline. Hopefully that I get hold of everything. I would be at the lunch, and I'm planning on, Lord willing, and I would like to have it. I want to have his son there with me to see what I want to let him see what his dad was the MC over, because I got a multitude of pictures, and was taking pictures, and when y'all two would be sitting up there commiserating during the program, and I'm sitting up, and I would be sitting back there going like, say, man, what did he say? You just won't believe what's coming out of John's mouth while we As I
Well,
close, John, I'm gonna put this up on the screen,
yes,
and
it,
that I want folks to. I mean, they probably can't see as much as I would like, but I want folks to. This was and I got your John Wooten down there in the left hand
right,
corner, but
right,
this is what the league is not understanding.
yeah,
Out of everybody that's on this poster, only one person is employed. Now, you got the late Denny Green there, you know, but
yes,
everybody, Tony Dungy's in the Hall of Fame, Rod Rivera, Hugh Jackson. You got, I mean, there's an sundry number of people that are there that Jim Caldwell
yeah,
and Raheem Morris, Leslie Frazier. These are guys. I mean, Ray Rhodes, Art Shell, Lovey Smith, Romeo Cornell, who's still here.
right,
I mean, so this is what the league is failing to understand and grasp. These guys are winners. These guys been winners.
yeah. One other thing, let me say this, just coming back reflected. The other guy that stood up in that room back in 202 was Ted Cottrell, who was the defensive coordinator at the Vikings.
Right.
He stood in that room as well. Because I reflect back at it, just going back over that meeting that night. He was one of those that stood quickly and said, heads are going to roll, let mine be the first to go. But that's what we had then. And that was the kind of thing that pushed us forward, and but we're not going to give up the fight. Like
No, that's
Ed,
well.
AD,
I don't. The other picture that I can. I'm pretty sure folks saw this. This is one when the late Muhammad Ali. A lot of folks don't know that you were sort of that man that pulled all that together. They don't. I mean, I'm just since we're in February. That picture when they see with Jim, Bill Russell,
yeah.
Ali, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar,
Well, he was
all those
12
guys.
then.
You were that gentleman standing behind them,
Yeah.
but you were the one. You were the guy that pulled all that together. And so that's another. I tell you what. I know you got to go. Nita's probably sitting there looking at you like, how long you gonna sit? But
No, she doesn't do that. No.
no, but anyway, that. I tell you what, I'm gonna bring you back. We're gonna talk about that because
All right. I'll be
that
happy to.
I want to
That
because
happened.
that's a historical moment that
Yeah.
I want you to lay out and really, because you guys back then weren't making a whole lot of money, but
No.
as you told me, the champ Muhammad Ali bankroll y'all because what y'all were trying to do in the development back then.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that I'm just sort of I'm just teasing folks, but you coming back and we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that meeting and the whole work with Muhammad Ali and how the interaction that you guys had back then because that needs to be told.
All right, partner. And we look forward to seeing you on Thursday, right?
I would, I'm, like I said, the Lord willing, the breath still in my body. I hope to see y'all. I'll see all of y'all. But John, thank you again. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it, and looking forward to seeing you. And I'll see you when I get out there. Okay.
All right, partner. Be safe and thank you again.
All right.
Appreciate
Good night now. Yeah, folks. I tell you what, it's it's I wanted to, as I was sitting back, and I know in between, and I'll say this now, you will be hearing me coming from Los Angeles this time next week, and of course it might be late after the game, and it might be some impromptu sessions going on as well. But I'm looking to bring everything to the corner and give you the best that I have to give, offering you some perspective, some folks that you probably don't have a chance to deal with on a first name basis, and being able to just bring it and just bring the personalities to you, and in the spirit of my man Max Edison, we will be there. So without further ado, as we get ready to step off the corner and as the lights come down low on the corner, Hey, take care of yourself. If you hadn't got your shots, go get your shots. If you hadn't got your boosters, go get your boosters. I don't give a darn what everybody else say. It is better to have it than not have it. And so go do that. And wishing y'all peace. And ciao, I'm out of here. And y'all take care. God bless.